All right, so there's going to be our first commercial break. What I want to do in this next segment, we'll
do you want me to hold Panera up more prominently?
Get them to put an ad.
I also can do my Psycho Bunny hat and,
Yes. So, hey,
brand fan.
This next segment of the Leaders, Letters, and Legacy was brought to you by Panera.
We would love that.
Hey, what's up, friends? Welcome to Leaders, Letters, and Legacy, the podcast where the past, present, principle, and purpose all relentlessly collide and inspire. We are thrilled that you are here as we explore the life lessons and the leadership moments that continue to shape the fraternity and sorority experience. Along with my dear friend, Dr. Ann Callais, I'm Scott Fussell, and it is a good day, a really, really good day to tell a great story. Let's go. What's up, world? Over the next few weeks, we're going to be joined by TJ Sullivan and Joel Goldman as we revisit their legendary program, Friendship in the Age of AIDS. The impact these two men had on campuses all across North America was an absolute game changer, helping to launch a new generation of activism and elevate a platform for campus-based speakers that wasn't there before. This conversation is equal parts hilarious, heartbreaking, and hopeful, resulting in a truly meaningful discussion we are thrilled to capture, preserve, and share with each of you. Enjoy. Hey, what's up, everybody? You picked a great day to tap play on the podcast. We're thrilled that you are here today with us. Dr. Ann Callais, what is going on in your world today? So much good stuff happening out there. Talk to us.
Big news. Just bought a fishing camp, going back to my roots.
Yeah, you are.
Maybe I'll even finish the book, By You to the Boardroom, that I've been working on for a while. So, but good stuff. And, it's interesting how opportunities for reflection allow us to have some clarity. And I'll share a little bit about that in the podcast because one of our guests has helped me specifically be one of those people in my life to do that. But, this morning I got up and I started thinking about today and I got butterflies in my stomach because I met our guest when I was really young. I started in the field in 1991, a fraternity and sorority experience and being an advisor. But I met our guest in 1993 at a summer program called the Interfraternity Institute. And, speaking on college campuses and at conferences was really new to higher education as it related specifically to fraternities and sororities. And our two guests today, along with a couple of other folks who they'll share that story, really made this an opportunity to share stories, experiences, but more than that, it created, and they'll tell you a little bit about this, but it created an industry where people have been able to tell their stories and share their stories to college students to have an impact. Today, everybody wants to be an influencer. These two were influencers long before it was cool. My friendship and relationship with them has been more than 30 years now. And that is really something special to me.
So I think we should just probably go ahead and introduce them really quickly because we're talking about them like they're not sitting here. So Ann, just tell everybody who our guest is today. Go for it.
Oh my goodness. Our guests today are Joel Goldman and TJ Sullivan, who for 8 years presented to millions of students on thousands of campuses and at conferences a program called Friendship in the Age of AIDS. And it changed lives and it saved lives. And they were really the beginning of AIDS education on college campuses in the way that we came to know it during that time. So please welcome Joel Goldman and TJ Sullivan.
TJ, Joel, so great to have you guys with us. What's going on today?
Oh, it's so great to be here. Thank you guys for giving us a chance for two old guys to rehash history here.
Yeah, and it's really great because it has been, God, I can't believe when Ann said over 30 years I've known you. And wow, it means we started this program like 31, 32 years ago. And
Well, if you guys are ready, we're just going to jump right into it. I want to go back to a couple of things that Mary Ann said in the intro. Is like, you guys are two of the OGs of the speaking circuit. So it was a completely different landscape back then. I remember, TJ and I were talking in our prep call, the name Will Keim came up a couple of times, and he was the first person that ever came to Middle Tennessee State that was like an outside speaker. We were just amazed by this person. And for all of us back then, we were just arrogant enough to believe that our fraternities had a monopoly on all-stars. So the fact that we could actually learn something from somebody from another fraternity was kind of mind-blowing to us. And I know he had a special role in your run and really giving you guys some early encouragement. So let's talk a little bit about the origin story, how this session, Friendship in the Age of AIDS, how did it come about? And then I want to give our listeners a little bit of a peek back into the actual, what was the layout of the session and why did it work? Because a lot of us, me included, we didn't have the opportunity to see you guys teach. And so we want to get into that, but let's talk about the origin story first. And Joel, can we lean on you for that?
Picture it, Sicily, 1992.
Picture this.
That's a Golden Girls reference for the four people who get it.
Wow. Who ding it. Right. No, it was the end of 1992, and I was diagnosed with HIV, and I was trying to find a way, I think, to ease my family and friends' minds about the fact that I was diagnosed, and I was told I would have maybe 2-3 years at most to live. And I just said I wanted to make what was left of my time mean something and try to educate people about it, because people weren't talking about it. And what I had that was so lucky is I had friends, I had family, I had an employer at the time who all were like, wanted me to be public about it, didn't want me to feel ashamed. And that gave me the ability that other people who were diagnosed, I would go to support groups and hear people crying because their twin sisters that never come back to my, house again. And I realized I had it so good. TJ used to say, if you got to have HIV, you want to be Joel Goldman. He was right. Because, I had so much support. So I wanted to go out there and do something. I talked to TJ about maybe us pairing up, because he was doing such great work with Bacchus and the alcohol. And it was such a big part of my story. When I was drunk is when I made bad decisions around sex. And TJ said smartly, why don't you go do a speech first and see how it feels to even tell your story? And God bless our friend Scott Horton, who at the time was at Texas Christian University. And he said, because he was one of the people I had said, I just want to educate people. And he called me within that few weeks of TJ saying, go test it out, and said, hey, I want to bring you down here to TCU. And I want you to tell your story and let's see how it goes. I'm like, okay, there's a great place to test it. I'm a Jewish guy from the North. If I could kill it at Texas Christian in the South, I might have something.
I got something here.
So I did. I told it. And it was, the only thing I didn't like about it was how somber it is. I think Mary Ann can attest it. In our daily lives, TJ is a little more serious, and I'm more of a jokester. And so the fact that for an hour I had to play so, I hated
the sad case.
I wanted
more Joel, yeah.
And so TJ, that's why TJ was the perfect blend of that. And when I came back from Texas Christian and told TJ, I said, I can do this. And we had it recorded. And I just said, we just need to infuse some comedy, because they definitely were moved. They definitely were responsive, but I didn't want it to be such a somber, scary message. I wanted there to be something hopeful for students to know how they could do it. And you can take it from here, TJ, but one thing what we agreed upon was that they might not be able to really hear my story and think, oh, this could happen to me. But we thought they probably could hear TJ's story as my friend, that this was happening to his friend, and how could we open the door that way? Because if you're educating about how to take care of your friends, you're educating them as well. Take it away, Teach.
Well, I in terms of setting the stage, so 1992, I was in Denver. I was working for the Bacchus Peer Education Network, doing alcohol, drug education, peer education type stuff. And I was traveling around doing a lot of programs on alcohol and risk management and things like that. Not my favorite topic, but that was my job. And I had just come from working for Pi Kappa Phi fraternity, my fraternity. And Joel was, I don't know, how many years since you had left Sammy, Sigma Alpha Mu?
Not even a year. I mean, it was
yeah. So we had both recently left our national fraternity staffs, and we're kind of in our first job out of that realm. And we knew we would see each other once or twice a year. Joel was living in Columbus at the time, his hometown, and it was just like, hey, maybe we could put something together, and that way we could see each other and hang out. Because Joel was the first friend I ever had that told me he was HIV positive, and it honestly, it scared the crap out of me. I was like, oh my God, and again, this is 1992. This is barely 10 years after the discovery of AIDS, and the previous decade had been people screaming in the streets and silence equals death and all these different things, and so it was a very raw issue. And just nothing was being said on college campuses about this issue at all. I mean, red ribbons were kind of a new thing, right? That was in those early years. That's when you started seeing those at the award ceremonies in Hollywood and that kind of thing. So it was really, really fresh and very, very raw, this issue. And I thought I was going to lose my friend. So I said, well, let's get together and do something together. I had been doing all these alcohol programs. I had been playing a little bit with some stand-up comedy, and I enjoyed that rhythm, and I was a big stand-up comedy fan, so I wanted to do some of that. Joel had this story that was so serious that he was making people burst into tears. And so by combining those two things, not only were we able to put a program together that was serious but was also funny, but we also got to hang out together. And we thought that might go for what, Joel, a year or two? We thought maybe...
we thought I could live maybe two years before I would be so sick I couldn't travel.
Yeah.
So we didn't expect it to go 8 years, and then I even did a few years after TJ stopped, which is a funny thing because people would have thought I would have been one who's like, okay, I'm done, I'm tired. But the medications changed, and I was able to.
And speaking, like Marianne said, the speaking business wasn't a business. I mean, Will Keim was quite literally the only person who was making his living speaking in the student activities, college, fraternity, sorority life space. He was the only one. There were a lot of other people. You've had Maureen Searing on the program, TJ Schmitz, Mary Peterson, Dave Westall. I mean, there were a lot of great people, but they all had their paycheck was coming from another organization. They were supported by their organization. So Joel and I coming along, we were probably, after Will Keim, the second people to actually be able to pay our bills. And fortunately, Joel had an employer that kept his insurance going, because then that was a non-starter. He had to have his insurance. So, so anyway, we did not start this off like, oh, let's launch a program and it started off as a way for he and I to hang out and still stay relevant in the fraternity and sorority space, which we had just left, professionally. So that's kind of the origin thing.
And I just want to mention the employer I had was Larry Schaefer, who was the president of the Sigma Alpha Mu Foundation, which I was a Sigma Alpha Mu. I would eventually became national president, but at that time that was who I'd been employed by. And when I told him I was positive, he said, "You'll come work for me. You'll handle my charity stuff." He had a real estate investment firm. And he said, "And you can speak as much as you want." And he would tell you, he never thought that meant like 50, 60 dates a year.
Yeah.
He thought it would be like 4 or 5 times a semester.
Yeah. I had the same thing. Drew Hunter with Bacchus. I mean, he carried my butt for a year and a half. I mean, and I was not doing good work for him because I was so busy with this. Right. I think one theme you'll hear, Scott and Marianne, is that this wasn't just our brilliance or our whatever. So many people helped make this happen. I mean, this was like a phenomenon, and it was like the whole community made this happen. All these fraternity and sorority life professionals, a lot of people working for national fraternities and sororities, other speakers. I mean, we'd have Maureen Searing go out and tell people, you need to bring TJ and Joel to campus. I mean, those people
solid
lifted
endorsement.
us up. Yeah, there was a lot of that. So this wasn't just us get with an idea and let's go make a program. It was very organic, but it was fast. It was like the beanstalk, Jack and the Beanstalk, a couple seeds and boom, all the way to the sky. So yeah.
And we'll be right back. Scott Fussell's approach to mental health and well-being programming is, shall we say, it's just different. If you're looking for content heavy on the clinical side, Scott's probably not a fit for your organization. However, if you're seeking a refreshingly transparent, application-rich, and shame-free message that places a higher premium on connection than correction, you can now say, I know a guy, and his story sounds really familiar. After the show, head over to scottfussellcoaching.com and check out the many ways Scott can empower you, your family, your community, or your organization with the tools needed to experience true transformation. Scott Fussell Coaching and Consulting, well-being and parenting programming that meets you right where you are. Now back to the show. A couple things you mentioned when we talked last week. You were really adamant about the number of people and the amount of support that you had from other people. You mentioned Maureen a second ago and Will Kime. So I love that you're still tipping your hat and thanking those folks and acknowledging them because, wow. And specifically in that moment, what an important issue, because we thought it was a death sentence. First person I remember being diagnosed was Magic Johnson. I remember going to basketball practice the next day and we're thinking, Magic Johnson will be dead in 6 months. And
it was definitely in the zeitgeist of the culture. It was definitely the big scary issue. And maybe people were starting to realize that this could happen other than to just those people. It was like, this is a societal health issue, a public health issue. So, yeah.
Well, you talked about it being a lightning in the kind of moment, and you're at these conferences and you're just passing out flyers, and that's how the demand started to be created. Talk a little bit about that, and then talk about that first run at Penn, and talk about that first time out debuting it on a campus, so to speak, as it was in that form.
So summer of 92 is when Joel told me, and I flipped out, and I was probably number 48 on his list of people telling, but but it was, he was going through that whole coming out publicly about HIV to his friends and family and networks and stuff. And I was part of that network. Right. And we had known each other in college very tangentially, and then we became good friends during the time we both worked for our fraternities. And then we both went to IU, Indiana. So, there was all these connections and mutual friends and different things. But summer 92, I want to say August, September, right about this time of year is when he told me. And then we sort of threw things together. We got together for a weekend. I think I went to Columbus and we hung out and, what if we did this? What if we did that? How do we get to go from the serious stuff to them to talking about condoms? So we kind of worked out an idea and wrote some outlines, and then it's kind of funny. I mean, the flyer is really hilarious. I mean, this is 1992, 93. We went to the Association of Fraternity Advisors annual meeting, which is always in December, and we made a one-page flyer. I'm pretty sure I used paper from my office to make 100 flyers. I think it was orange or green. I don't remember what color it was. And went to AFA. But at the time, the program wasn't called Friendship in the Age of AIDS. Our first title was Fraternity Brothers Get AIDS Too, which was very incendiary. That got and a lot of the people at the conference had talked to Joel and knew about this. But when we showed up, I think they thought I was going to be wheeling him in a wheelchair. And, Scott and Joel was fine. And we passed out this flyer and said, hey, we're putting this thing together. And boom, everybody was like, February 5th. How about April 3rd? I mean, I'd say the first semester, that spring of 93, we did, I don't know, Joel, 12, 13, maybe. I mean, it was really fast. Yeah. But the first one was in February. I distinctly remember February 1993, University of Pennsylvania, which Eric Norman brought it. And is he a Sammy?
It's Sammy, yeah.
Okay, so it was one of Joel's fraternity brothers that was the first one. And by the way, University of Pennsylvania, not an easy campus. I mean, that is not an easy audience.
No,
Marianne knows
it is not.
That is not an easy audience. But I don't think it was huge. I don't remember it being big, but I mean, it
was a Greek week something. It was a Greek mandatory something, a couple hundred people.
And I think it was too serious, the first one. I don't think we liked it. I think we were kind of unhappy with it and quickly did some changes. But I mean, we were full-time speakers by the summer of 93. When Marianne saw us at IFI, we were hanging on to our jobs for benefits, and our bosses were being nice to us because we were gone all the time. It was crazy. Yeah.
And we'll be right back. Dr. Ann Callais is a nationally recognized facilitator and leader in building belonging and organizational culture. With over 25 years of experience in higher ed and strategic initiatives, Ann empowers teams and communities to feel seen, valued, and connected. Her work blends story, research, music, and heart to bring people together around purpose and identity. To learn more about how Dr. Callais can help your organization or community build belonging and connection, strengthening and cultivating a values-based culture, go to maryanncallais.com. Now back to the show.
I remember being at IFI, and I was new in the field. You know, I had been in the field for 2 years, and I remembered sitting in the Alpha Sigma Phi house, and I thought to myself, wow, these guys have so much courage, because I didn't know them like at all. And I went up, and immediately it became my responsibility too, if that makes any sense. Like, and so I thought to myself, and then we hung out that night, and I was like, oh my God, I get to hang out with the superstars. And my first day bar, it's okay. And so this whole time, like listening to them and then having this moment of these guys are just normal guys, but they are doing something. Like there was a feeling in the room that day that you knew this was on its path to being something really big, right? And immediately I was like, I've got to get back to campus. I've got to talk to my students, but I don't know how to do that in the South in 1993, right? I mean, and especially not knowing, of trying to keep myself very protected as well, and the students that had come out to me, you know, because at that point, many people thought it was a gay man's disease, period. Right? Yep. And so having those conversations from that moment, that hearing them for 1 hour, put even our campus in a trajectory that we were okay with having these conversations, and we were okay with having programming, and we were going to be, if they could have the courage, if Joel could have the courage to stand on stage and tell his story, and TJ, his friend, could take his whole life on the road, then we had responsibility to do what we could in our community. And from that time, I mean, I became supporters of them because it was a special moment. And so,
you know, Marianne mentions the, you know, the gay thing. And like, honestly, that was a tricky spot for us. We had to really negotiate that. I mean, we are both gay men. And I mean, Joel's like varsity gay. I'm junior varsity gay, but you know what I'm saying?
I'm gold star.
I mean, I don't, I mean, Joel is the Superman of gay. I'm like the Green Lantern of gay, you know? So, but we made a decision early on that we were not going to make sexual orientation part of our program. Now, that was difficult for us in a way because it was almost like we were rejecting the fact that the battle had been fought for 10 years by the gay community. And here we were going to sort of step away from that and not make that a center point. And that was a real decision for us because, you know, we both were very proud and out and so forth, but we realized if we wanted all these straight boys all over the country to wear condoms, they needed to hear it from someone they could presume was straight or presume was gay. And Joel and I used to laugh about this, that we never got asked. The only people who ever asked us were other gay people. And they'd be like, you're gay, right? And we're like, yeah, come on, you know. And but like the mass of the audience, they didn't know. And we were using terms like your partner, he, she, you know, we were gender neutral before it was cool, you know. And that was really key. I think Joel actually got up there and people saw whatever they needed to see.
Right.
And that was so key to the secret sauce of this program, is that we made it like, whoever you're with, whoever your friends are with, let's all love each other. Let's all take care of each other. And, but it was tricky because I mean, several times during the program, I'd have gay people go, well, I guess you're trying to play it off like you're straight. And I'm like, it's two different issues. I'm trying to make these straight kids understand that this is something they need to care about. And, you know, that required a little bit of kind of on stage closeting ourselves a little bit, but I don't know. What do you think, Joel?
I mean, I just always told my story, no matter where I was, as a gender neutral thing. Because what I always found that whoever heard it, they heard it for whatever they were. If they were straight, they heard it that way. If they were gay, they heard it that way. And that's all I ever wanted, was for everyone to know that it didn't exclude them. And, you know, and women too, especially because women in that first 10 years, there were plenty. Jimmy Carroll and I used to do a program together about women, because women were some of the original people who were diagnosed were women, but they kind of got swept under the rug. And because a lot of it was being politicized, it's easier to say this is happening to gay men, if you want to politicize it, then say, and women also. It was never, but I think 4 or 5 times someone came up to me after a program to ask me what I was, but no one ever did it during the Q&A. No. So
inclusivity was a major value for us. It was always from the very beginning. It was more important that it be an inclusive program than it be about us. I mean, which is odd because Joel was sharing his personal story, but we didn't want the end of the takeaway from all this thing to be like, look at these guys' lives. We wanted it to be, oh my God, what does this mean for my life and my friends' lives?
Well, I love the way you described it a minute ago, TJ. You talked about people heard what they needed to hear.
Yeah.
And I think when you talk about the secret sauce, I think that is it. That might be an added ingredient in the secret sauce is regardless of the issue, sometimes we actually hear what we need to hear. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with TJ and Joel. Scott Fussell's approach to mental health and well-being programming is, shall we say, it's just different. If you're looking for content heavy on the clinical side, Scott's probably not a fit for your organization. However, if you're seeking a refreshingly transparent, application-rich, and shame-free message that places a higher premium on connection than correction, you can now say, I know a guy, and his story sounds really familiar. After the show, head over to scottfussellcoaching.com and check out the many ways Scott can empower you, your family, your community, or your organization with the tools needed to experience true transformation. Scott Fussell Coaching and Consulting, well-being and parenting programming that meets you right where you are. Now back to the show.
And I love the way you positioned, the whole concept of today, everybody's got to say inclusive and has to say belonging, and you all just created it. And I think that's a beautiful part that probably has never been talked about before. So thanks for bringing that up. Thank you.
Yeah. And I wanted to weave in the guilt I sometimes felt as a gay person up there doing AIDS and not being, hi, I'm a gay person. That was a challenge for us. There were times where Joel and I would be a little bit like feeling guilty that like the first wave of activists had died, for God's sake.
Wow.
And here we were, doing the third wave of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to get at.
I think that's a really important point for people to hear, because I don't know that straight white guy doesn't fully appreciate what that had to have been like for you.
Right.
And the challenges and use your word, the guilt that may have been associated with that. So I appreciate for people like me, the inclusivity of the way you guys presented the content, but I sure think it would be helpful for people to really understand, okay, it's not just this friendship in the age of AIDS and the complexities of just managing the illness, but boy, there's this whole other set of challenges that take us down a whole conversation on mental health, because the guilt and the angst that had to come with that had to be significant. Hey, welcome back to the show. We're so glad that you tapped play today. We're here with TJ and Joel and having just this amazing conversation about their 8-year run with their session that went to campuses all over North America called Friendship in the Age of AIDS. And guys, I want to go back to Penn and specifically the time right after that. So you talked about Penn a little bit earlier, and it sounded like you didn't feel like you quite stuck the landing there, but there had to be great learning that happened from that initial sessions. Maybe talk about that, and how many more times, how many at-bats, how many more campuses did you need to hit? You're like, oh no, we've got something really, really meaningful and impactful here. Can you talk about that for a second?
Well, first of all, the name changed really quickly. Remember, we went in with Fraternity Brothers Get AIDS Too. We switched to Friendship in the Age of AIDS, I don't know, a month or two into it, Joel? Does that sound right?
It was before, I think, we went to Penn.
Yeah. We changed the name because we realized this was not just going to be for fraternities and sororities. So that was that was a significant change. I would say, Scott, probably the hardest part of putting this program together, Joel's part where he talked about his life and his experience and being infected, that part came together really fast because it's Joel's story. He, we added to it and some different things and changed some words and whatever. But Joel's part was the base upon which we built. My part was really hard because I think we had to figure out how to change, like the shifting of the tone of the program.
Yeah.
It was really hard. Transitions were hard. The jokes were hard. So I don't think I felt really confident until that following fall that I really knew the time. And I'm a performer, that's my, Joel was up there telling his story. I was trying to create this framework around it. And so I'd say my part took a lot longer than his did. Joel, is that track with your memory?
Yeah. Cause it's hard to just change your story, but I would find things along the way too that I would say, because again, I don't like to be so serious. Even though I was telling my story, I used to talk about how my dad, who's a rabbi, was very open about sex, and he gave me a 5-set encyclopedia on sex, and each week I'd have to read a chapter, and each week when my friends are outside playing ball, I'm inside talking about Wet Dreams with Rabbi Goldman chapter a week. So I mean, it's a true story, but I had to infuse a little bit of
of course,
because it was so hard for me to be so serious for that part of it. So,
yeah. Well, I think the audience is going to be way more receptive if you can share some of those things. I'm thinking about when I do most of my speaking is on mental health, and nobody wants to talk about anxiety and depression, right? That is boring. So you've got to find ways to infuse parts of your story and to be lighthearted about them and be able to laugh about some of those things so that people are like, oh, okay, so we're not having a depressing conversation about depression. That makes sense. And so I love that you infused the humor and the laughter and the jokes in it. And TJ, you got me thinking about Mike Marbiglia's podcast called Working It Out, because comedians, before they record their Netflix special, they're going to the smaller clubs and they're working it out. Like, does this content work? How does this joke fit with this one? So it sounds okay. Yep. That's what I'm hearing you describe.
Yeah, it took a while, but yeah, it wasn't like we were building up to an HBO special, right? It was just like every time we did it, there'd be another joke and another thing that worked. So the best example of this, I would say second year, Joel, I'm not really sure, but we were doing our program, and the program was Joel, me out first, and then Joel, and then me, and then we'd come out together at the end. And we always had a bottle of water each, right? And one particular night, I guess I reached for Joel's water bottle instead of mine, and I took a swig from it, and the audience gasped, and we didn't know why they gasped. It was Joel. I mean, I remember us looking at each other like, what the hell did you say? Like, I didn't say anything. What'd you say? And we just had this moment, and it was after the program was over, the applause and everything. Someone said, oh my God, when you drank from his water bottle, that just blew my mind. And we didn't even realize that we had done that. And so like the next night I was like, Joel, let's try this. And I ran him through a script and whatever. And we did this line, which is still seared into people's brain. And I would say that it became our closer. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, Joel's HIV positive and drinks from the water bottle. TJ is negative, and I would grab the bottle and I drink from it. I'm still negative. And that was the punch in the head that would just finish it was the best ending of all time. And, but that wasn't something we wrote. That was something that accidentally happened. So yeah, that was people 25, 30 years later will tell us that when we drank from the same water bottle, that blew their mind and opened their eyes and but that came organically through an accident.
Thanks for joining us for this part of our conversation with TJ and Joel. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to Leaders, Letters, and Legacy. The show is produced by Scott Fussell and hosted by Dr. Ann Callais and Scott Fussell. Background noise is provided by Bailey, Bentley, and Lincoln. Spousal support provided by Sue and Ree. For more, be sure to follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And to help others find the show, be sure to rate and review the podcast before logging out. Leaders, Letters, and Legacy is an L3 Learning production.